Before we dive in to the file setup here, let me be very clear. If you use QuickBooks for payroll, either enhanced or assisted, you can get actual job costing by processing payroll inside of QuickBooks. So that is a great alternative. Okay. You do not have to go through all of these steps. This is not the only way to do job costing inside of QuickBooks for labor. If you have questions on this, please let us know and we can send you in a different direction. Absolutely, reach out to our team. So let's dive in. I'm using a brand new file that I've started for this exercise, so there's no data in here currently. Some of my customers who use this actually do this part, the part that I'm about to show you, in a separate QuickBooks file than their live file, because it is kind of transactional information, right? A lot of transactions that aren't necessary towards your end goal of getting your financials. So it's possible to do it in your live file, or it's also possible to set it up as a separate file that's used for just information purposes only, and then post the results into your live file. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is go into the Employee Center here, and I'm going to create a few new employees. So the first one I'll make is Marjorie Adams, and I don't care about any of the other details in here. All I care about is the payroll information. Now on the payroll information tab here, I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of payroll items, earnings items for Marjorie. So the company I'm setting up here, we're going to pretend is a general contractor. It's kind of general, right? That builds homes. So I'm going to go ahead or builds homes and does like commercial work. I'm going to go ahead and put some high-level generic categories in here just so that you can get an idea. Obviously, you can use your own terminologies that would fit with your team, your business. All right, so let's create a payroll item called plumbing. Now you do not have to have payroll turned on. As I said, I just started this as a base file. I do not have payroll turned on. So I'm going to set it up as an hourly wage and just regular pay. I'm going to call it plumbing, and it's going to hit payroll expense account. Again, I'm not going to process payroll through here, so which expense account it hits really does not matter. And I'm going to say finish. Okay. Now for Marjorie, when I put in the amount here, she's not a master plumber, so we cost her out at $25 per hour anytime she works on a plumbing task. So when she puts in her time card and chooses the task plumbing, that's what's going to show up here. So the $25 that I'm putting in, so I'm just going to stick that here, right? $25 is an hourly rate. If you had an annual rate, of course, you'd put in $25,000, but we're talking about costing on an hourly basis. So I put the $25 in here. That is the stated costs that we have come up with somewhere outside of QuickBooks, right? By running some, information on how much we have in our benefits, what's the additional burden that we have to pay, any additional costs besides just Marjorie's hourly rate. We've come up to this flat $25 per hour fee that we want to cost out against the projects. Now this is not going to be exact, right? Because throughout the year, employees cost us different amounts of money sometimes. So this is not going to be an exact amount. This is a stated amount that we have decided we're going to bill or we're going to cost Marjorie out at, okay? So I put in $25 there. Then I'm going to go ahead and set up another one for electrical, and do setup, hourly wages, next, regular pay, next, electrical, oops, it was highlighted there. Electrical is going to be what it's called. Say next, it's going to hit payroll expenses and finish. And for electrical work, Marjorie is more senior, so we say we cost her out at $50 an hour because we pay her a higher rate when she does electrical work. Then we're going to go ahead and set up management. And I'm just setting these up as examples again. Hourly wages, regular pay, management, payroll expenses. So I'm just tabbing right through that. And when Marjorie puts in an hour of work, we want it to cost out at $75 whenever she chooses management. Okay. Then on the employee as well, we need to come down here to this box that says use time data to create paychecks. All right, what that'll allow us to do is basically Marjorie can put in paychecks. Put in time cards. That's what that box means. We're not actually creating paychecks in the system. Okay, now of course there are a lot of other fields here when you're setting up an employee. I don't care about any of those other fields when it comes to this process that we're setting up with the stated costs, because I'm not actually processing payroll through QuickBooks. So the rest of it, direct deposit, taxes, sick vacation, none of that matters. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. You can't see the OK button because it's in a more detailed, zoomed in fashion here. It's going to pop up and say, hey, you didn't fill in all these other information for this employee. Would you like to fill that in now? And I'm going to go ahead and say leave as is so that it creates Marjorie. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a couple more employees. So we'll do Marcus Smith. Okay, and jump down to the payroll information here. So Marcus will cost out electrical at $85 an hour, plumbing at $65 an hour, and Marcus doesn't have any management time, so I'm not going to set that up. So you can pick and choose on your employees who has access to what, right? Now also too, you can be more generic. You don't have to do it on a per user. So if you have, fixed roles, so you have foreman, you have technicians, right? So if you have fixed roles, you can just set them up as fixed roles as well. It just depends on how many, right? How many people are going to be putting their time in, because you can only put in a maximum of 24 hours to any one person for a day, right? So if you're going to have more than 24 hours, you have to set up multiple people for that. Now they do have some settings in the preferences where you can go in and set up some default settings for people, right? So it pre-fills in some of this information automatically for you, and then you just modify it if that person has anything different than the standard. So anyway, there are some quicker, faster ways to get this information in. Unfortunately, in the earnings item section inside of QuickBooks, you cannot import. There's no importing of this data. I can import Marcus Smith's name, but I can't import the earnings items here. So the only ways around that are to use the defaults or just to come in and manually key them in, which we're doing right now. So I use that. Check that box, use time data to create paychecks, and I'm just going to leave it as is. And we're going to go ahead and set up one more. We'll set up Dave Matthews. Oops, Dave. And really I could put Dave M because it doesn't matter. And Dave Matthews is going to be management at $200 an hour, and also electrical at $100. Oops, not $1,000. $100 an hour, and we're going to use time data to create paychecks. Okay, and leave as is. So now I have my 3 employees set up. I have their stated wages, right? What I want them to cost out per hour for the tasks that they're doing, set up in the system. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go in and create, so I'm going to go ahead and back out of this. We're going to go in and create an estimate for the different jobs, or create a couple estimates for the different jobs. So I'll go ahead and expand this so we have a little bit more of a view here. So you do not need to use estimates when you're doing this stated cost per job, but I want to take it a step further and show you how the estimates versus actuals would work if you did use estimates in your system. Now, in here, an estimate is just a budget for a job, right? This does not have to be customer facing. It's not something that you have to print out and give out to anybody else. It's just creating a budget for the job. Now, there are other ways in QuickBooks, right, through the budgeting where I can create a budget towards the job, but an estimate actually provides better reporting when you use an estimate to create your budget for the job. There are more reports, more estimate versus actual reports that are available than budget versus actual reports, basically. So that's why I choose to use estimates when I'm doing anything that is budgeting around a job. I like to use estimates to create that budget. Okay, so the first one I'm going to set up is going to be Fourlane, and I'm going to set up the customer, and then under Fourlane I'm going to set up office building. Okay, so as a job under Fourlane, and I'm just doing quick add because I don't care about all those details. All right. Now, of course, this is a Fourlane office building, which we don't have because we're 100% remote, but I wanted to make sure to have something simple in there. Now, I need to choose a different template than what's showing here as a default. because I need to be able to put in my estimated cost, right? So the retail estimate does not have the estimated cost and estimated sales price. So I'm going to flip it over to a proposal template here. And this zoomed in view makes it a little bit funny looking here. But you can see now that I have that set up. Here, let's lower this because I can't see. Okay, I can't see the customer anymore. But let's go ahead and move forward on this, and I'll close out of this one. So I have it to Fourlane still. I'm going to set up an item down below here, and that item is going to be labor. Okay. And so when I set up labor, I'm going to set it up as a service item, and I'm going to check this little box that says the service is used in assemblies, because that allows me to make it double-sided. I'm just doing that not because it really affects what I'm doing here, but because I always say that when you use a service item or any item in QuickBooks, you should always have it be double-sided, because you just never know when you're going to need it to be double-sided. Being double-sided, of course, means that on a purchase transaction, meaning a bill, a check, anything like that, it can hit a cost of goods sold account, which we don't have set up. So let's set up direct labor in here. Okay, so direct labor, cost of goods sold. So anytime it's on a purchase transaction, it will hit that direct labor account. Anytime it's on a sales transaction, we can have it hit an income account. Okay, so anytime it's on an invoice or a sales receipt, credit memo, it will hit the income account when we use this item on that type of transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and just create one called sales, and it will be an income account. Okay. Now notice at this level, I'm not setting up electrical labor, anything like that, because we're not diving into that level of detail. I'm just setting up labor as a generic item. And then for this one, I'm going to go ahead and say that I expect the cost of this project to be $15,000. All right, and I expect the sales amount to be, so the income amount to be $18,000. And I'm going to go ahead and say save and new. All right. Okay, and I'm actually going to close out of it and see if I open it up, if it will. Yeah, it's still not allowing me to see it in this file. Now again, the reason it's not allowing me to do this is because I have it super zoomed in so that we can see it in HD quality, but I know the field, so I'm just going to go ahead and progress and enter these additional customers in to put the estimates in. So right now the field, right, so when you create an estimate, what field does it sit on? It sits in the customer name field there. So I'm going to go ahead and create another estimate here to the Austin Center. And it's going to ask me, do I want a quick add? So I'm just going to say yes, progress it through, bring it down to the labor item over here. And when I bring it down to the labor item, I'm going to put in the estimated cost of $18,000 and put in the estimated revenues of $24,000. Okay. And I'll say save and new. Again, when I say save and new, where does the cursor go? It goes up in the customer job area, which we can't see right now. So I'm going to do another one for enterprise. And it says enterprise is not on my customer list. I'm going to do quick add, come down to the labor item here, and I'll put in $25,000 as estimated cost of labor and $35,000. Now again, in your estimates, in your actual file, you would have some other items on your estimate, probably materials or other things here. But again, just for the purposes of getting through being able to report on stated labor, I'm just adding labor onto these proposals. So I'll say save and new again. And then we'll go ahead with Soccer City and tab on through down to labor. And we're going to put in estimated cost of $40,000 and estimated revenues of $50,000. Okay, always the joys of, recording videos. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do, I have my estimates set up in the system, right? And an estimate, of course, is a non-posting transaction, so it doesn't affect any of my financials or anything yet. If I go run my profit and loss by job, nothing's there. If I go run my estimate versus actual, right? So we'll run estimate versus actuals here. I do have my estimated costs and my estimated revenues, but I have no actuals yet, right? Because I haven't actually posted anything. So then I'm going to go in here and enter time. So go to enter time and use weekly timesheet. And so the first person that I'm going to enter time here is going to be Dave Matthews. And I'm going to go back and start in June here. Now, a couple of things around this. So I do have a lot of customers who have manual handwritten timesheets, and they have somebody in the office who are keying these timesheets in. That's probably not the most effective way to do it, but you can key these timesheets in for people. You can also use an add-on app like Intuit Field Service Management or T-Sheets to record the time to provide to your payroll company, right? So that those programs can record the time to provide to your payroll company, and you can use that data to connect to QuickBooks and import the data in. All right. Or if you have your own time card system, your own method of tracking time that does not connect to QuickBooks, I'd suggest getting the data into Excel and then importing it using Transaction Pro Importer. Finally, if you have your own homegrown system, if you want direct integration, of course, our custom programming department can do that for you. Any kind of direct integration from a homegrown system or proprietary system, we would be able to get that connected into QuickBooks for you so you don't have to do this manual keying in. All right. So in the timesheets here, I'm just going to go ahead and select the job and put in, we do have the service item here, but it's not required to put in the service item. I'm just going to add that here, and we're going to go ahead and say electrical for Dave since we set him up, and put in 8 hours here and 8 hours there. Then we're going to go down to the Soccer City job and put in labor and electrical, and we'll just say 8 hours here and 8 hours there. And then Dave does management of the enterprise job, and he does 4 hours on Friday, and then he also does management of the Fourlane job for the office building, and he does 4 hours on, or we can leave it at 5 hours on Friday. Now, of course, you'd want to go in and put in their actual time cards, but for the purposes, oops, I forgot to put in these items here. For the purposes of today's demo, I just want to get some time data in, okay? So I'm going to make this quick. So I'm going to go ahead and say next and copy last sheet, next, copy last sheet, next, copy last sheet, just to get some time in here through the middle of July, basically. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and say save and new, and then I'll choose another employee. So let's choose Marcus Smith, and same thing, go back to the first week in June and start to put in. So Marcus works on the office building a lot in the plumbing area, let's say. So has 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours. And then Marcus, oops, I didn't put in a customer. Oh, it says I did put in a customer job. Oh, it wants my labor item in here. Oh, it's giving me, Marcus doesn't have, so that was a good pop-up. Marcus doesn't have, so if I switch it to management, it pops up this warning. It says, hey, your payroll items are not set up for Marcus to have a payroll rate, so are you sure you want to progress? So that's a good little pop-up. So I don't want to choose management, right? Because Marcus doesn't, I don't have a rate, a stated cost set up for Marcus when he does management. So that's a way for me to check and say, oh wait, I meant to choose electrical. So let's go ahead and do office Austin Center and choose labor, and we'll say electrical and 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. And then we'll choose the Soccer City labor for plumbing, and it will be 4 hours, 4 hours. He doesn't work a full week. And then I'm going to go ahead and go forward and copy last sheet, forward, copy last sheet, forward, copy last sheet, forward, copy last sheet, and save and new. And then I'm going to do my last employee here, Marjorie. So Marjorie just started at the end of June. And so she is only working on the Fourlane office building job, and we're going to put in some plumbing work for her and just do 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, and then go forward and copy last sheet. And then on this week, she's going to work on the Soccer City job plumbing the full 40 hours, and we'll just say save and close. Okay, so now I have the time cards in the system. So when I come in here and I look at these reports again, it's, we want to make sure that that everything is set up the way that we want it to be set up. And we'll go into reading the reports in the next video. But I wanted to point out a couple of things. So with our payroll items list here, you can, when you go in and set up those payroll items, you can set up things for overtime. You can set up for double time, holiday time, whatever other additional options you want to have. The only thing that I just give as a warning is that the more payroll items you set up, the more choices people are going to have when they're entering their time card data, and the more complicated it will be. So trying to keep it as few options as possible. So maybe instead of like plumbing, electrical, etc., you just want to put in regular, overtime, double time. That is a better way to approach it, because you can still give each of the different employees varying rates, right? So regular, hourly, double time, overtime. You can give them varying rates based on the employee. You just don't want them to have too many choices, right? So I just caution people, don't get too detailed when it comes to choosing the tasks that they are putting in there. If you can keep it to just something simple, it's the best. All right, so this is all the setup we need, and in the next video we're going to go through the results.